Welcome to Uncoached, a podcast for volunteer coaches and parents figuring out youth sports as we go. Each episode, we keep things simple. 5 questions to talk about practical insights you can actually use with your youth athletes. Today, my guest is Jason Fetters. Jason is a longtime baseball coach, the founder of a youth baseball club built around developing players the right way, and a creator of a coaching app called Practice OS, designed to help coaches show up to practice with a clear plan. Today, we're talking about some of the biggest challenges facing youth baseball, from the pressure of today's tryout system to what great coach preparation really looks like, and how we can create a better experience for youth athletes, parents, and volunteer coaches. Jason, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor and just introduce yourself and let the folks know who you are.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brad. Great to see you and catch up again as well. And my name is Jason Fetters. I am the owner of 816 Futures. We also have our building facility, which is 816 Athletics, which is how we got started into this space. My wife and I, 4 years ago, we decided that, you know what, there's not enough indoor practice space for families and teams here in the Kansas City area. And so we were able to start our own facility 4 years ago and then gradually grew that into our own baseball organization this past year. And I'm a dad of 2. I've got a son, Brody, who's 18, getting ready to go off to college, going to McPherson College near Wichita, Kansas. He's a pitcher only out there. And then I have Reagan, my 12-year-old, who is the one that keeps me on my toes every single solitary day. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my lovely wife, Carly. She is the rock that holds our family together. She's a coach herself. She's been a competitive gymnastics coach for 25 years approximately now. And coaching is just in our blood. It's a thing that goes to my day-to-day job from a leadership standpoint. And it's a way that we give back through a game that is just a fantastic game, in my opinion.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate you going through that. I like that your idea there of the indoor facility, and that's kind of how it started, because there's not a lot of indoor opportunity to continue to train. And I'm in the Midwest too, right? And even if it's hot and humid like it is, this week where we're at, it's nice to have an indoor facility you can jump into for a little bit. I give you kudos because, man, I would love to do that myself because I coach a lot of soccer and I'd love to have more indoor opportunities here too. I just didn't have the nerve to start something like you did. And I think that's awesome, man. Congrats.
I appreciate that. I think what you call nerve, I'll call brains, and I don't have very much of those either. So, it was honestly a deal where we found an opportunity. We searched through this, and we went through it multiple times, from building business plans about this of, do we build a new facility? Do we find a warehouse space? Do we, find a retail space that is kind of in a defunct situation that needs just tenants? We looked through it in a multitude of ways, and then we were actually able to find a facility that was already built out. And the tenant was leaving. The organization was being absorbed elsewhere through another organization that utilized it, and we made it our own.
No, that's very cool. We could probably have a whole other show discussing the process and how it actually works to start an organization, to create a facility and to get something up and running. So, maybe we'll touch back again on that at a later time, because I looked into all of it too. I mean, it's expensive. So I'm glad you were able to find one that was kind of built and ready to go, because doing that stuff from scratch it's just crazy how expensive this stuff can get. But let's jump into the content here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of the biggest complaints that I hear from parents is the pressure that's surrounding tryouts. And I know you and I recently swapped some messages on this. I've got my own feelings in it that I'll jump into, but oftentimes organizations and families feel like they have to get back within 24, 48 hours to make a decision that really is going to affect the whole next year of, their family's life, their child's life, how they're going to develop over the next year. So do you think the youth baseball tryout system is broken? Maybe I should ask, hey, do you think the youth baseball system needs some things to change, in your opinion?
Yeah, I definitely think that it has some areas that it could be improved upon. The timing of things, while it's very tough and stressful on families, but from an organization standpoint, now, being in this, going through our second tryout season, we just completed it over the last couple of days. It's been going on for the last 2 weeks. A couple of things that I think are broken are not only the fact that you only have, typically 24 to 48 hours, but also the fact that it felt like this year in Kansas City, it felt like everything was moved up 2 or 3 weeks earlier than it had been in the past. Like there was still highly competitive tournaments from a youth space going on over the course of the last couple of weekends, and yet we're having to host tryouts. And the unfortunate thing is we had built out our tryout plan. We had it built out in February, and we knew we had identified the dates. We timed it around the MLB All-Star break. It was about the same time as it had been last year. We weren't going to do anything during the All-Star game or the Home Run Derby so that families could be at home watching that stuff. And what a great show that was by your own, your hometown guy, Jordan there. But the day that we went to announce when our tryouts were going to be, our director of baseball, who is also the head varsity coach at Staley High School here, a very high level 6A school, he reaches out to me and he says, "Hey, we gotta change this up." And I said, "What do you mean we have to change this up?" Because we got to go early. Okay, why? And he said, "Well, we don't want to be last to the dance, and we want to make sure that we still have a chance to evaluate the appropriate level of talent that we feel that our program offers. And so we're going to have to move our dates up by 2.5 weeks."
Wow.
And so we did. And, to be hosting tryouts the before the 4th of July is just wild to think. And then the other part of it that you've really touched on that I don't like, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And that's the timing of things, right? And I know you've talked about this a little bit in the past. We offer a 48-hour window, and we are flexible with that window so long as there is two-way communication happening with the families and ourselves. And so, for example, we actually had to disband a team this year just last night because we had X number of kids had accepted our offers, X number of kids had asked for extensions, and we hosted makeup tryout dates 2 different times, a couple of private workouts, and we weren't able to get the same level of talent of the kids that had accepted. Well, now, fast forward 2 weeks from when they accepted to now, a good portion of tryouts have happened, but yet we were, lenient on the expiration date of the acceptance. And now these poor families are left high and dry, so to speak, trying to find a new spot. And we did a little bit of help with it, where we reached out to a couple of different other organizations, and they were looking for players, thankfully. And so we sent the families that information. But, from I was talking to this morning with my workout partner at the gym, and we were talking about this, and he said, "This timing of things is terrible." He goes, "But now that you've explained it, what you guys had to do with your team and disband that whole team, and now these families are left looking," he goes, "I understand it." He goes, "Baseball is a team game, and the unfortunate thing is that those other families that delayed this for a couple of weeks, they were the selfish ones, and now they hurt the whole team." And so I see it from all areas,
sure.
right? All avenues. And I was thinking about how you fix it, right? Because that's what, anybody that's ever in leadership, you're an okay leader if you can identify the problem. You're a great leader if you can help provide a solution for the problem.
That's right.
And I don't think that this would ever really work because of egos, to be honest. But as I was thinking about it, if in Kansas City, right? So Kansas City is an area that has, you have your Kansas City, then you have your Northland, you have your Southland, you have East Kansas City, Overland Park, you have all these other surrounding areas, and all these other areas have their own organizations. Yep. And if the organizations within each area could work together and say, all right, X organization, you're going to host tryouts this week. We're all going to host them this week. Okay, so X organization, Y organization, Z organization, A organization. Okay, everybody hosts the tryouts on the same week. Okay, X, you're going to do 12U on Monday. Y, you're going to do 12U on Tuesday. Z, you're going to do it on Wednesday. A, you're going to do it on Thursday. And then, you rotate the days of what everybody does. And then that way, all the families know when the tryouts are going to be. You post it online. You can work together and create one flyer so we don't all have the same Chat GPT looking flyers. And, and then everybody has the same week to get ready for.
Yeah.
I think that, is it foolproof? No. But I think that it would definitely help everybody that is involved. And most importantly, it would help the families that are involved. And that's at the end of the day, what's most important.
Yeah. And I think you're right. We're in this nasty cycle of your club experience where you're getting word of earlier and earlier tryouts for organizations. And then you felt the pressure, you bumped yours up, and it's just kind of, it's just this cycle of constantly going earlier and earlier. And what an awkward situation it is too for the team that you're currently playing on to have tryouts, right? Have to make offers. Some kids are getting offers. Some kids are not getting offers, and you still have tournaments to play with that current team. So that's one thing that I think is just absolutely awkward and really unfortunate with the system that we've got today. I like your approach. I actually wish that the organizations that lead our youth sports would step in at maybe a state level and say offers cannot go out until this date. There's a key date. You run your tryouts however you want ahead of that date, but there will be no offers that go out. And if you're found to have been making offers, then there's whatever penalty happens to the organization. Again, you're right. What you said, egos get in the way. It's become more and more where the club's more concerned about the club and what product they're putting on the field more than it's about how this is affecting families and the actual people that are engaging with their organization. So it's unfortunate. It's not just baseball. I'll tell you, I'm big in soccer on our side, and soccer's the same way too. Baseball's the same way here. Soccer's, even earlier. We've got this tricky thing where there are some regulations in our state here where you can only have tryouts and there is an offer date period, but the organizations are still getting around that. So instead of calling it a tryout, they're calling it a kick around or some other friendly term.
A workout.
Right. It's come give me a look type of thing. It's not technically a tryout, but it is what it is. People are evaluating kids and they're having this verbal conversation that, hey, I'd love you to join my team. And I just don't know a good solid way to get around it. I just know it's troublesome right now in youth sports.
Well, and I know like some of it, and this, I think that we'll probably touch on this later. But I think that a lot of it can be helped or derived if we were to get back into like the more leagues and the competitive leagues, and not so focused on tournaments and things like that. Because, for example, youth football here, they are restricted within the league that they are all associated with on when their tryouts are and how many workouts they're run, just like a Misha, from a high school level, with how many workouts they can do, when your tryouts can be. They're restricted from a temperature standpoint, so if it gets to 100 degrees, they can't be outside. We've benefited it from a facility standpoint through one of the organizations here, and they were able to come inside and work out, the last couple of years when other teams, they didn't have that ability.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think just talking about it and maybe airing our opinions might help something, change some opinions, change some things. So I don't know if there's going to be an immediate change, but I do like the structure that your football organization has there. You probably hear a lot of stories. Norway's a hot topic. The soccer was great with Holland, and it shed a lot of light on kind of their youth system. And they do a lot of this too, where it's, under 13, there's a lot of regulation that goes into their youth sports. So I don't know, maybe there's some opportunity there in the future for that to change. But I do want to talk about some things we can control. And the next topic
for sure.
is, hey, you're building this baseball club for a reason. Like, you wanted to get back into it because you want to build it the right way. But I just want to know your opinion. Like, what does that actually look like for you? What's the right way? What does that look like beyond just the X's and O's, the wins and losses of a baseball game?
Yeah, so we do it, and we start it from tryouts is when we try to start what our expectations are as an organization, as myself and Coach DeAndre, Coach D. We meet with the families, and we talk to all the parents. We thank them for coming out, and we tell them you can't over communicate, right? Like, you have to let them know, hey, this is what your child is going to go through today. They're going to do a version of a dynamic warm-up. They're going to go and play catch. Then they're going to run a home to first. They're going to get timed on it. If you have a catcher, they're going to get their pop time to second. And we lay out what the whole workout's going to be, right? And then they know that. And so while we have our other coaches working through the dynamic warm up, we're talking to the parents, we're letting them know this, and then we're telling them, hey, here is about us. We care about wins and losses because the more wins you get, the more you get to play. But at the end of the day, our goal is that our teams all finish with around a 500 record, because then they're playing the appropriate level of competition. If our teams are playing and they are going 30-5 in the spring and the summer, we're doing those kids a disservice.
Yeah.
Because as Coach D has always said and tells the families, I don't want your kid great at 12. I don't want them great at 13. I want them great at 18 so that they have options after high school.
For sure.
And so that's, kind of our message is we want families that are bought into our message. We want kids that are there to work. And we also acknowledge, and we tell the parents during the parent meeting, that at the end of the day, we tell them a couple of things. One, don't watch your kid during this tryout. Watch all the other kids, because they're going to be of and around the same age. You need to see what your kid does well compared to what these other kids do, so that you answer your own questions if your kid doesn't get an offer, right? Or if your kid does get an offer and you see that's the level that's out there, you see why and that he's earned it. And so we urge parents to do that. And then we tell the parents too, we acknowledge the fact of how wild the travel baseball scene is these days and the expectations that parents put on it. And we remind the parents that this is a game for these kids that are out here on this side of the fence. Nothing happens over here in a negative way. The only negative connotations that happen and that are culture killers, are team killers, they happen from the bleachers. So you as parents need to be ready to make sure that you are a part of this. If you're not, we will ask you to leave the organization, because we're not going to tolerate you upsetting the masses.
It's amazing to me how often communication related things come up when it comes to a well-run team or a well-run organization.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Over communicating is not a problem, because I think where you get big issues with parents versus coaches or parents versus an organization is when they're kind of left in the dark and they don't understand what's going on. So keeping them, in the know and along the path with you of the development of their kid, I mean, it can only benefit you. And I think you also embrace their opportunity to support the kid at home too, right? Because they're only with the organization or the team a certain number of hours a week. You want the parent representing what the team wants to do or what the coach wants to do at home too, and helping to, support the child in whatever they're doing at home in that environment too. So communications is fantastic. And, your message there to the parents about what happens in the bleachers is so, so accurate. I absolutely love it. I wonder how's the response been from parents and the feedback been so far?
So I will tell you, we've been doing this now 2 years, and our first year, I purposely and intentionally watched their faces, because I knew, because I've had a partnership with Coach D for a handful of years. He gave my son private lessons for hitting for many years, and he's become a friend in the industry and in life, more importantly. And I knew where he was going with this during the first year, and so I purposely watched all the parents' faces. And the majority of them, they kind of grinned a little bit and they just started shaking their head. Like,
Yeah.
You could see that they were acknowledging it. Some of them, they just kind of looked like appalled that he would even insinuate something like that. Right. Yeah. And so like, those are the ones where I made mental notes of who they were.
Sure.
And fortunately, this past year, we've established ourselves as far as what our internal org structure is, so to speak. And Coach D handles all the baseball. He handles any baseball related questions from families. He helps with the coaches. He doesn't coach any of our teams because he's coaching in the high school season, right? And they coincide with each other and he can't. And so he handles anything and everything baseball and development wise. I handle everything financial. And so if you have a question about your payment, you have a question about what's going to what, I'm the one that takes care of that. We don't cross pollinate with what we are doing. If a parent comes to him about finances, he will look at him and say, have you taken it to Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you need to. He's the one that's going to answer that. And in turn, if I get emails, because my email address is out there a little bit more prevalently than Coach D's, just because of communication through the organization, if I get emails about questions about stuff from families, I just flip it over to him.
Yeah.
Let him handle it. and it's been a very, very good marriage when it comes to that.
No, that's great.
And some of the other stuff too, like that we end up, parents see it, and I think that this is crucial because we're here to build you up and help you enhance yourself as a baseball player, right? But more importantly, we're here to help you advance yourself as a young human. And there's not enough good mentorship on what being a good human looks like. And so some of the little things that we do and we teach our teams, they're leave the dugout better than you got it. That's a phrase that every one of our teams tells the kids. And so when we go to leave the dugout, it's clean as a whistle. If it's not, there is a penalty. You may have to do some burpees or, something along those lines.
I love it.
Make sure that you hustle on and off the field.
Yep.
Make sure that you are putting in work outside of practice. Like if this day and age, having our own facility, like if you're not putting in extra work to get better, you're only working at practice. And, little Timmy over here is at the facility working on the drills that we've worked on in practice and is asking for more drills. Little Timmy's advancing a little bit more than you. There's your answer, right?
Yeah.
And then most importantly, I think, is to be respectful and good stewards of the game. And so we finish every post-game speech with a reminder to the kids to make sure that they thank their families, thank their friends, thank all their relatives that came and supported them, whether they were here in the stands or if they were watching on Game Changer. And we always make sure that we're doing that. And it's developed so much so that there's probably 7 kids on the 2 teams that I ended up helping with this past year that all came up to me, and we created our own little dap up session at the end of it after we're done, because they want to make sure that they thank me and thank the other coaches as well, not just their families. And, those are the things that you and I know they get you through life, being respectful, making sure that you pick up after yourself, making sure that if you see a piece of trash on the ground, you go and you pick it up. Like those are just little things that, get forgotten in this day and age because we're so tied to the screen time. We're so tied to everything else that's just about us. Let's worry about everybody else too.
Yeah, I love it. And to back up a little bit, one thing I want to make sure to call out to the parents that might be listening: you can ruin it for your kid on a tryout or on a team with your behavior, because this is an evaluation for the kid, but I think coaches also want to have a good community supporting the team as well. I know at least that's what I look for too. I look for good families and good athletes.
Yep.
I've not taken some kids on teams because I know the behavior that goes along with that child. It's unfortunate to say, but you want to have good people there and you want to present yourself in the best way possible and for the kids, right? This is ultimately for them, and the behavior is a big part of that. And I love what you're doing here as far as the behavior, cleaning up the dugout. Man, how many times do you walk out of a dugout and you see, plastic water bottles, caps, gum, seeds all over the place? It can be a nightmare.
Boxes of pretzels and half-eaten hot dogs.
Yeah. I mean, who's raising these kids? I don't know, but
what do their rooms look like?
I can only imagine. Otherwise, they're just letting it all out on the baseball field where they're getting away from it because they don't have a coach that's trying to help lead them the right way.
Sure.
So most coaches, I think they genuinely want to help kids, but a lot of them are just showing up to practice, and I think they're winging it, to be perfectly transparent. I don't think they're going in with a true development plan. Not only just for that day, but thinking a little bit longer term, maybe a whole seasonal approach to development for that child. So give me some of your perspective on what separates a coach who's just running drills for the sake of running drills and one who's actually spending time developing players.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because that's one of our messages, is that the game is the reward to the work that you put in at practice and outside of practice. And so our drills, we start our practices organizationally the same way as we do a game. And so we treat, there's one minor thing: we don't hit before practice, whereas we hit before a game, because where we play out, there's hitting tunnels. But we do the same dynamic warm up before every practice that we do before the game. We play catch. We then get in our outfielders. Everybody goes out to the outfield and they work on their drop steps. Our infielders, they go and they work on their short hops and their picks. And so we've created a system to where they know what this is. And they know that that's going to be the first, 15 to 20 minutes of every practice is the same as every game, because I'm a firm believer in the old adage of you play how you practice.
Yeah.
And so we've built that piece of it out. And one of the things that kind of drove that was that you there's so many arm injuries that occur, and they occur because of overuse of the arm. And if you warm up, you don't need to throw to 50 throws to get loose. If you warm up your whole body, your arm takes that much less. So like our warm up and throwing is less than 30 throws.
Yeah.
Like we have it that finite down. And so then you get into the lessons, and we structured how our practices look. Coach D has shared his 30 years of coaching. He's shared all the drills that he's ever done. We have a online portfolio of that for all the coaches. He's given us a practice plan that he's used in the past that he uses now for Staley High School, which has been a top 6 program in Missouri the 2 years that he's been there. Finished second 2 years ago in state. And so we have those practice plans, and we get that finite to where your dynamic warm up is listed and you've got 20 minutes. Your playing catch is, 10 minutes. This is this. And then from a drill perspective, when you get into the drills, it's not about how many repetitions you take of it. It's the quality of the reps that you take. And so how you can differentiate, or as a parent, if you're listening, what you should look for is, are they running through it fast to just get 30 reps in per kid? Are they timing these? Or are they stopping when they see something wrong, asking the kid, the player, hey, what did you see on this drill? What do you understand of this drill? Explain it back to me to make sure that they understand the drill. And then it's not just for them, because if they don't understand it, there's probably another 4 kids in line that don't understand it too. And so you explain it, you stop, and you have to reset the drill. If they don't understand it, you as the coach need to make sure that you can explain it in multiple ways. And so, we don't put, as far as like number of reps, there's only one drill that we do where we actually take a finite number of reps, and that's our warm up batting drill. And that's just how many swings they get doing certain, because we start with a situational batting drill.
Yeah.
And so, you as a parent need to look and see and make sure that your coach understands the drill himself, right? Because YouTube is a wonderful thing. ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, whatever other AI options are out there, they're wonderful things to help you build these things. But if you don't know how to execute them, then you're not doing the kids you're doing the kids a disservice. And so what that did was, it led to a friend of mine who used to own an organization here in Kansas City. We've become friends. He works in the tech space, and him and I were talking about this same thing. Fortunately, at that time, it was over a nice cold beverage, but we'll have one sometime soon, right?
Do that next time.
But it led to a conversation of, you know what? We both understand technology. We both understand how valuable a practice plan can be for a coach. And so that's what led us to create this Practice Plan OS. Or Practice OS is technically the name of it, but it's a practice plan, right? And it utilizes AI. It utilizes the data that we've given it. And it's a great way of introducing a coach to what a practice plan looks like. And so we went so in depth with it that if you, Brad, you're the coach of the team, you sign up for our subscription, you put that you are a 12U coach, you've got 11 players on your roster, you guys play at a AA level, your coaching understanding is intermediate level, and so that you build that information in, you can build the individual players in as well. And then you take from there and you want to build your practice for tomorrow, right? Because if you're planning it the day of, you're failing yourself, you're failing your team. This takes less than 5 minutes and you can be prepared.
Sure.
And so you put in that you're going to be doing an outdoor practice. You're going to go for 90 minutes. And then we have a bank of items that we want you to work on. And you select, 3 of those items, for example. And then it calculates and it builds what your plan looks like from your dynamic warm up all the way down to water breaks and everything else. It embeds links to the drills that it wants you to do. And it's not going to be, if you have an hour and a half long practice, we restricted it to be able to select 3 subtopics so that you're not sitting there and trying to do 37 different drills, right? You're going to do 6 different drills so that the time is spent appropriately. And it's a very intuitive app. We just completed the beta testing of it. and we've rolled it out to a local league here, to where the president of the league has been testing it with his 6U team. I've been testing it with our 13U team. I've had a high school coach, Coach D. He's looked through it and worked through it as well. And our most recent enhancement was we actually put an upload feature, so you can take your game changer stats, export them through a CSV file, upload it into here each weekend, and it will build you a recap of your season and what your team, and more specifically what individual players need to work on based on what the stats are. So then it goes into, is whoever is running your game changer, are they being honest about how they're scoring the game, or are they not? Like, that's a whole nother podcast, right? It was something that we saw that we were doing it the right way. This gentleman, he used to do it the right way and build these things out. And now it's like, all right, let's give back even more. Let's build this out. And so we've developed it, and we're pretty happy with it, and we'll continue to enhance it.
Well, it sounds like it's offering a good development plan too. You're not just running through some drills because you want to work on, double plays for a day, right? You've got some stats that back it up that say, hey, this is really where we need to step in. Or, if you've got some kids that need extra help with hitting, you've got the stats to help back that up too. I like the game changer opportunity there too. Going back just a little bit in the conversation, one thing that I really like that you said is that you warm up or you prepare for practice the same way you prepare for games. I've had a lot of conversations with some mental coaches and performance coaches. And one thing I think that's doing, and whether you're, maybe paying attention to it or not, is helping calm those nerves too of certain kids that might be getting a little nervous because they get into that mode of, this is the warm up, this is what we're going to do. And the mind and body is ready to go. And whether it's a practice or a game, it's the same consistent thing. And I think that's a really fantastic approach. So I just wanted to call that out really quickly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I learned, unfortunately for my son, he was my guinea pig growing up as a coach.
You always are.
And, right. And, I was overly hard on him being a coach's kid. I was always going to make sure that, he batted in the bottom half of the lineup. He was, it didn't matter that he was my son. Right. Like he got it extra hard because he was my son.
Sure.
And beyond reproach, nobody was going to ever question that. And so, but I learned a long way too that, I used to yell and scream and be that guy that would, thinking that the louder that I yelled, the more impactful that it was going to be, the message. I learned a long time ago in doing this that if I pull a kid in who just made an error, and we got out of the inning and we're in between innings, if I pull him over and I look at him and I say, hey, Timmy, what did you see on that play? And he tells me and he breaks it down. Okay, this is what I saw from my vantage point. One, I'm gaining that his trust in me that I'm not just going to yell at him and bench him, right? I'm gaining what he views in his baseball IQ so that I can then help him enhance that as well. And we have that conversation because what I learned is, and not only in personal life, but also in professional life, like you get a lot more with sugar than you do spice. And the minute that you yell at one of these kids because they made a mistake, you've lost them for the entire game. That's not fair to the team at that point because you want to yell at them. Like, change your approach. You're the adult. You're supposed to be the better human being here. Have the conversation.
Yeah.
Control your emotions.
Such a great approach. You think about your own life. You wouldn't want your boss yelling at you in front of your entire team. That's going to make you shut down. It's going to make you angry. It's going to kill your confidence. Yeah. So same approach, even more with kids who are still learning how to handle their emotions and these pressure situations. So it's really, really
well. And think about baseball too. Like they always talk about the unwritten rules of baseball and remain composed and don't show emotion, but yet all these coaches show emotion.
Yeah.
All these coaches lose their composure. And so, I always do a bunch of self-reflecting, and that was one of the things that I've picked up over the course of the last probably 7 years.
Yeah. And along this same path here, if you're taking over a brand new team starting tomorrow, let's say one thing that you'd focus on during that first month that might have the biggest impact on player development.
Oh, so the one thing is building the routine. I think that is so crucial. You talked about it with the mental side of it. And if you build what that routine is, like we had our 12 and our 13-year-olds, our 11-year-old team last year, even our 10-year-old team to a certain extent, like they didn't need the coach out there leading them during their warm up. Like The leaders within the team stepped up. They knew what we wanted from a warm up side. And so if you can build that routine from day one, it's massive. And so this year, we brought over an entire team, and we meshed two teams together and added a few other pieces. And I was already having a conversation with that coach because he's coming from outside of our organization, from a different organization. And I said, hey, I sent him over. I said, hey, here's our warm up. Here's our pre-practice, pre-game routine. Here's all these things. And he looked at it and he's like, oh my gosh, like I needed this, 2 years ago. And this is awesome because, that way organizationally, because for example, last year, our 12U team was short a player. We brought up an 11U player to play with us. We didn't have to worry about what he was going to do from a routine standpoint. He already knew what our warm-up routine was. He already knew what the expectations were. And so, if you can build it out from day one, what that routine looks like, practice one, then you're that miles ahead of everybody else. And if you build it out as a coach or an organization, you build it out because the ultimate goal is to get these kids ready for high school. If you build it out in such a way that is, indicative of what your local high school program looks like, go to their practices and watch, talk to those coaches. Those coaches love talking. Yep. And, again, we're fortunate because we have one. My son's high school coach, he is a resource and a friend as well. We talk baseball quite frequently as well. And, if you can build these kids, from day one to be prepared for what your expectations are, your practices are that much smoother. Your games are that much more fun.
I think something you teased out too that I'm totally on board with is along the way of building these athletes, you're also building leaders. And by giving them an opportunity to lead the team, even through a warm up or a drill, you're giving them an opportunity to become that vocal person on the team, a leader on the team. And I'm a huge proponent of that. I do it with my team where, different kids will lead things even in a practice, but you want that to happen, right? You want to be able to say, hey, I've got kids I can lean on that are real leaders, because when it comes to that game time and you're in the game, you've got other coaches, other leaders on the field with everybody. It's going to help replicate the things that you've been driving in practice and the mantras you're trying to lead with the team and what have you. So, along with the athletic skills, it's fantastic to build mental leaders, let's call them, as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it just helps your job as a coach, right? Like you don't have to always have that conversation with a player that might be down on themselves because they struck out or didn't come through and whatever the situation was. Those leaders on your team are over there picking them up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm getting the goosebumps, talking about it now, because it's when you see that happen, it's so rewarding. Like that's why we're in this, right? We're not in this because again, here's another famous Coach D line that he tells parents. He goes, if you're in it for trophies, come to my house. I got a basement full of them. I'm here to get these kids ready.
Yeah.
Like, we're here to get these kids ready and ready for life. Because if you look at the stats, and I know that you probably have, 7% of graduating high school kids go play collegiate athletics. That's a very finite amount. And then the number obviously becomes exponentially smaller as you advance to the next levels. And we just had the MLB draft. Well, the MLB draft, for people that don't know this was actually talked about on Sports Talk Radio in Kansas City. They didn't realize it, that a handful of years ago, it went from 50 rounds down to 20. And, look at all those that don't necessarily pan out.
And you had the international folks, right? There's a big international with any sport, so that further dilutes things. So it's a tough path for sure. And so,
so you want to get them ready and through the leadership piece.
That's right.
To bring that back in so that they are ready when they get into life and they get into college and, they're presented other opportunities. They rise to the top, so to speak.
Yeah. Your ultimate goal isn't to get them to the pro level. Your ultimate goal is to create a good athlete, to create a good human being, a good person that can walk off the field and take some things that are actually going to impact their life. And we're kind of talking about this right now. So maybe the measure of success for a coach is when you look out on that field of play and you see your players replicating the things that you've been talking about and taking leadership opportunities on the field and helping teammates and things like that. I think that's a fantastic measure of a great coached team. A lot of people judge a coach or judge a team based on wins. What's something you think would be a good measure instead of the wins that we've been talking about here?
Yeah, so I think to me the wins is that group of kids better at the game than they were when you first got them? Are they better humans? right? And at the end of the day, did they have a good experience? Do they want to continue to come back?
Yeah.
Because, when you get to the, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old standpoint, that's when, for whatever reason, kids start to, or parents or coaches from other teams and sports push you to become a single sport athlete. I don't want you to be a single sport athlete. My oldest son was a dual sport athlete. My youngest son, he played multiple sports at different points of his life. And so like we build our fall schedule around that, and we truly embrace it. Like we do one practice a week in the fall, and it's an optional practice. Our families are going to know what, their 3 or 4 tournament weekends are by probably the first week of August, so that they can plan those weeks accordingly.
Yeah.
And they can let us know, hey, no, we've got a football game. We're not going to be able to make it. We're going to have to find a sub, or we're just going to run short that game. And instead of having, 11 or 12 on the bench, we're going to only have 10.
Yeah.
I think that making sure that, to bring that back, make sure that the kids are better at the sport and at life, making sure that they are having fun and they want to come back, and then making sure that they've represented themselves and they've represented the brand. Like we don't do last names on jerseys. We do our organizational logo on the back of the jersey, because you're playing for a team, you're playing for an organization, you're not playing for yourself.
That's great. I wish others would model, and maybe they will after listening to this, what your organization is doing. I'm going to take a stab at answering this next one with my perspective first, and maybe get your opinions, because you touched on it a little bit with your last little bit of this conversation when you talked about, making sure athletes can play multiple sports. Sounds like you don't have a lot of, tournaments planned in the fall, things like that, to allow them to have this other life and this other opportunity. I'm going to ask you, like, what's something that's been considered normal in today's youth baseball that we're going to look back in 10 years and think, man, that's crazy. Why did we ever do it that way? My answer is always going to be the year-round push that we're putting on youth athletes, U8, U9, U10, to just continually push them throughout an entire year to focus on one sport. And it's so tough, because I think a lot of organizations do that, in my opinion, because they want to secure that revenue, honestly, throughout an entire year, some security to the money that's coming into the organization, not just a spike in the spring. They want to have it in the winter months and the fall months and the summer months too. So, my perspective is the year-long focus on one single sport is a little bit brutal. And I think it's pushing burnout, it's pushing kids to stop playing, by the time they get to be 12 or 13 years old. And I think we're missing out on a lot of good athletes because of the hard push that we're putting on them in such a young age. So that's my answer. Let me open it up and get your thoughts.
So I don't disagree with that one bit. I experienced it with my oldest, where he was told by a coach outside of baseball, hey, and families, we were told this too, like, hey, we want dual sport athletes. We want dual sport athletes. We push dual sport athletes. But then in the summer, when it's not that sports season and they're hosting workouts, and a kid misses a Wednesday morning workout because he's playing in a baseball game, and when he returns Thursday to that sports workout in the morning, he's penalized because he skipped a workout.
It's terrible.
I mean, what you can't have your cake and eat it too, coach.
That's right.
And I had a real hard time with that, because I looked at it from a coaching perspective. Do I want my kid, my player, do I want him practicing for something that is probably 3 or 4 months away? Or do I want him out on a different field competing, driving that competitive burn and pushing himself athletically and mentally into a game situation? I'm sorry, but every day of the week, I'll take him in the game situation over that. So I agree with you on that. But I actually want to take a different turn on this, because I've entertained and I've had some conversations with a national program, because I think that the art of the baseball league, at least here in the Midwest, or at least here specifically in Kansas City, I think that it is falling by the wayside. Yeah. And I think that it is a huge, huge miss. And so Kansas City, for example, is a massive tournament-focused baseball and softball city. And I think that you, as a team, as a player, as a family, as an organization, you miss out by not playing in those leagues. You know, how when my son was coming up, he played in a league, and at, 11, 12, 13 years old, those formidable years in baseball, because pitching is becoming more and more, kids are, developing faster, puberty is hitting, etc. And we utilize those leagues to develop our pitching.
Yeah.
Okay. My son, we knew my son could pitch, right? We didn't need to see him pitch in a league game. We needed him to be ready on the weekend. So if he pitched in a league game, it was an inning in the middle of the week just to get him some work, because it was probably going to be a bullpen day for him to
Sure.
practice anyway, right? It allows you to develop kids in other positions and in a less intense environment. But we're so focused on tournaments, and we're so focused on the exposure and, being at the hottest tournament. So like this year, in our first year, PBR, Prep Baseball Report, is a massive brand here in Kansas City that hosts a lot of tournaments. I was taking a step back from high school baseball, where my son had been playing, into the youth space.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed, and shame on me, that PBR is where our youth teams needed to play. Now, each coach of each team dictates where they play and what tournaments they play in. We don't mandate that. But I was coaching two of the teams at the time, and so I put them into PBR tournaments. And it was a mistake on our side. And the mistake was the fact that, not that the tournaments were awful, because they were fantastic tournaments. The fields, the umpires, everything was great about them. But what I realized was the age-specific fields. You have a 12-year-old kid playing on a 400-foot to dead center field with no temporary fence in between.
Yeah.
Anything down the line or in the gap is a home run.
Yeah.
And when these tournaments are focused on your tiebreakers, and you've got 20 teams in your bracket, and your tiebreaker is runs allowed.
Crazy.
Well, there was, I think they have, between the two complexes, they have 14 fields maybe, and only 4 of them ever had temporary fences, and you never knew if they were going to have temporary fences. And so there's so much emphasis placed on this. Like, why not play in a league where you're on an age appropriate field, and when a kid hits a home run, he can celebrate and come in and party with his teammates and celebrate, hey, I just hit that nuke out to left center.
Right.
Did you guys see that? Right? Like, whereas now you look at it and you see these these scores, and they're 15 to 12, and you've got 7 home runs between the two teams, but you're playing on a high school field.
Right.
Like, what are the kids gaining from that? Whereas, and it's such a high pressure situation, because of these runs allowed, and you're pitching your better pitchers earlier in the tournament because you don't want to allow these runs, and then you're exhausting all of your pitching because you don't have a chance to develop it. And so I think that if we look back in 10 years, or at least I hope if we look back in 10 years, that we will see the leagues reinvent themselves here. And like I said, I've had some conversations with a national organization that runs leagues, and they do a fantastic job out on the East Coast. They pull from a 4-state area in their number one enrolled league, and they have over 1,200 teams in their leagues in all ages.
I love that.
And it's just fantastic. And so we're working with them to see what it would look like to bring that to here. But their big fear and mine is, how do you enter and penetrate a market that is so tournament focused? I
think it's there, because I'm right there with you. Make rec great again, or make leagues great again type of mentality.
Yep.
We are missing athletes who aren't making most clubs will take your money and they'll put you on a team, they'll put you in a division somewhere. But my opinion is, these clubs that have 3, 4, 5 teams at the same age bracket or age division, those teams that aren't your top team, why are we not putting them into a league where those players can further develop? Same mentality, right? It's a look at it like a feeder thing possibly, or something, but let these kids have lower pressure situations, lower cost, and have the opportunity to really find themselves, and then give them an opportunity to make a team, more and more. And for the record, I cannot stand that tiebreakers in tournaments are runs for, or in soccer, it's goals for. It's crazy, because you get these mismatched teams playing each other, and you wind up with a score, it's 20-3, and it's like, that helps nobody. It doesn't help the team that's winning by 20. It doesn't help the team that's losing, certainly. So it's it's brutal. I wish they would find some other tiebreakers for a lot of these tournaments.
Well, yeah, like this past year, what kind of brought it to light, and we had internal conversations about it, was our 11U team on Friday played at one complex that doesn't have temporary fences. They won 15-10.
Yeah.
And then the next night they played in a game, and it was at a field that had the temporary fence, and they played to a 5-3 game. Well, they ended up 2-0, but at 2-0 they were still like the eighth seed because there were so many other 2-0 teams. But all the other 2-0 teams had played at the other fields with the temporary fences, giving up less runs. Where I became a huge fan, and maybe it had to do with a little bit of winning, but it was how we won. Where I became a huge advocate for the age appropriate fields was our 12U team played in a wood bat tournament.
Cool.
And which are awesome, right? Like that sound is just great to hear coming off a wood bat. And when you see a kid, even at 12U, we had one of our kids, he got his bat broke off of a swing, and just to see the excitement and joy, like he's like, I just grounded out to the pitcher, but he's celebrating like he hit a game-winning double because he broke his bat.
That's right.
Right. And but we played on age appropriate fields, and it was just baseball.
Yeah.
And it was good, clean baseball all weekend long. And we were fortunate to win that tournament, and we got a nice wood bat. All the kids signed it. We've got it hanging, headed to hang up in the new facility. And the way that we won it, we dominated on the bracket day, and the first game, second game, and then we get to the championship game, and we're up in the last innings 6-1, and here comes a doinker, off the wood bat. Here comes this. Next thing you know, we're heading into extra innings tied, and we had blown the lead, and we just executed. And seeing them play on that age appropriate field, seeing them play, because we teach our outfielders, we play the gaps. Yeah. We're taking away doubles. We don't play the lines. Our pitchers know if you give up one down the line, that's a double on you, not on the fielders. Yeah. And so seeing them play the gaps and making the diving plays and making the plays in front of them and hitting the right cutoff and throwing to the right base, like seeing it on those fields because they had a chance to, right? If we were at the high school field, they wouldn't have a chance to make those.
Right.
And so it just gets them that much more prepared. And I made a concession that, I will push our coaches. They still get to dictate where they play, what tournaments they play in. I do not control that, but I pushed them to consider that as an option. And we had a very long internal conversation about it. And all of our coaches agreed, like, we might be onto something with making sure we do that, because the umpiring wasn't that much different. We have another whole other philosophy about umpiring and all of that. Yeah. So that way it keeps the parents from chirping and the coaches stay in line and things like that. So at the end of the day, the baseball was good baseball, and that's what we want.
That's awesome. Such good insight. I love getting the perspective and the inner workings of what your perspective as a parent, your perspective as a coach, as a club creator, as an app creator, and so many different things that you've got your hands in. It's such a good perspective. I appreciate your time. I'd love to let people know where they can find out more about, Practice OS app or the organization if they're looking into the area. Help me out. Where can people go to find more out about you?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you for everything that you have done with this platform and how you have grown it, because as we were talking earlier, before we started recording, it was, you started to show up on my feed, right? Like the algorithms of the phone, they're much like Mother Nature. They're undefeated. And, they nailed this one. It allowed you and I to reconnect after many years. And, you're doing great things for this community. Cool. And the guests that you've had so far have been spot on. I know that I'm taking the sponsorship lady. I'm going to take a lot of that information and take it to our parents, because we allow for fundraising, but I don't have enough bandwidth to be able to dictate what that looks like. And so I let each team take care of it. And so I'm going to take that and share that with all of our families. But where you can catch us is our website is 816athletics.com. That incorporates both our futures program, which is our youth side. We are developing it into a high school program as well down the road. And so 816 Athletics, you can find information about us there. For you coaches or you parents as well that want to get help getting drills for your son or your daughter, right now our practiceos.pro is the name of our website and app. You can just add it to your home screen on your phone, and get a membership set up. And you can, right now it's restricted to baseball and softball, but we do have the intention to grow it to soccer, to grow it to basketball, hockey, football, all the sports that are out there. And so while it is geared for the actual coach of a team, you as a parent, if you are, wanting to, it's a very low cost. I think we're at $5.99 a month right now is all it costs. And so you as a parent can download it and get a membership as well for those times of need where you going to your facility, your organization's facility, or whatever alternative facility that you guys use. So Brad, again, I appreciate the time.
No, I love it, Jason. If this episode helped you, share it with another coach or parent who's figuring it out too. You can find Uncoached in this episode wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch the episode on YouTube, and make sure to follow the Coaching Dad on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. We'll see you next time on Uncoached.
Yeah, step up, time to lead the way for the